Thanks very much, Cora and Admirable, for giving us the breakdown of what's happening throughout the rest of the preliminary. We're actually pretty well underway. There's been a lot of matches that have already been played. And a quick update for you guys, the dog versus snow match, we weren't able to resolve the issue. So we're going to head to a different match at a different preliminary location. It's going to be Hotform taking on Mousethecat.
Mousethecat. We go from dog to Mousethecat. Just to complete the menagerie. Yeah, very unusual name. Not a name that I'm familiar with. Hotform, of course, we spoke about in some depth before we moved over to Cora and Admirable there at the board. But he is definitely a proprietor of the Tempo Mage deck that we personally like to see.
Yes, and keep in mind, we don't like double Cabal's Tome that we saw from Snow's Tempo Mage, but that doesn't mean that it's not good. It's just something that we prefer. But yeah, Hotform's got the list that I tend to prefer. It's got a very early curve. It's very consistent. The one thing that he doesn't play Firelance Pearls. Instead, he plays a little bit more minion heavy in the mid-range. He plays double Water Elemental and double Astral Drake.
Never mind, it got banned.
What?
Yeah.
Who bans Tempo Mage? Oh my goodness.
The cat, all right?
Also, you missed the parallel joke earlier. Dog and Mouse the cat, and then Snow and Hotform.
Oh!
Yeah.
This is why you make the big bucks, TJ.
You're usually the one who points those things out. I was actually incredibly disappointed.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Honestly, if there was one thing I just never wanted to do, it was let you down, TJ.
It's definitely something that a lot of people should strive for. It's very hard to let me down, though. All right, well, Mousethecat does have some interesting decks, though.
Yes.
At least one of them, and potentially another one, depending on how much you like Hunter. And Murloc Paladin is his Paladin deck, and it's just straight up Murlocs. No Murloc N'Zoth.
Right.
It seems like a very consistent deck list. Lots of 2-ofs.
Yep.
It seems like it's refined, but that's sort of yet to be tested in a large environment in this meta. He is running double Ivory Knight, which is a card that it's been out for a little while now. It's been out for a little over a week, but can you really call it good after that long?
It's hard to say. I mean, it fits perhaps slightly more so, about 10% more so in Anyfin Paladin than it does in Pure N'Zoth Paladin, because that's the chance, roughly, that you rip the third Anyfin can happen from an Ivory Knight. Yeah, and just heal for 10, get that third Anyfin, just bust open control decks by just having way too much damage than they can possibly cope with. But like you said, untested card, and that kind of paints a caricature of Mousethecat as a player, that he's willing to take these risks, right? And if you're an unknown player in a situation like this and you're looking to break out and you're saying, you know, for this entire year, this is my last chance to have a shot at getting through one of these prelims and making it to a championship, players in that kind of position are probably more inclined to take that kind of risk, right? It's like, let's try something new. This might be meta breaking. I'm not sure yet. I don't have the thousands of game sample size to back this up, but this is what I feel gives me the chance. I'm going to hope that the inexperience plays for me as opposed to against me, because my opponents won't necessarily know what's optimal against my decks. And honestly, I'm a big fan of just trying stuff.
Yeah, and we'll have to see. Mousethecat seems like he's got a very prototype-like lineup. It feels a little bit next level to me, but it seems a little bit odd. The reason being is because a Conquest lineup, you always start building it off of a ban. You always say, this is the deck that I'm going to ban, and I'm going to build my lineup based around that, because then it gives you sort of a deck that you know you're banning and a deck that you know that your decks are weak against. And this deck sort of mixes that up a little bit. You look at this deck automatically, you think, well, he's probably pretty good against Control Warrior.
Yep. But
then he throws in an Aggro Shaman. His Hunter list is a little bit fast, but it does have some stuff that's good against it, so then you have a little bit of a mixed feeling there. And Murloc Paladin, I can't imagine the current iteration has been tested enough against Control Warrior to know if it's good. And we didn't see that in the last prelims. Almost everybody that brought Murloc Paladin brought Freeze Mage, so their automatic ban was Control Warrior.
Yes.
So I don't know what the plan here for Mousethecat is, but he obviously feels comfortable enough against Control Warrior to not ban it.
Yeah, and I think this is a conversation I was having with you, I think, yesterday, where you were talking to me about your favored lineups. You know, the way you were phrasing it is like, this is the lineup you bring. This is your ban shaman world. This is what you bring. This is your ban warlock world. This is what you bring. So that way of like building your lineups is super important, because you have to know what your strategy is going in. It starts with a meta read, right? It's like, this is what people are going to bring generally. So this is what I build, and then this is what I ban against this and this. And then you're basically diluting the entire tournament down to just pure maths, and then there's just kind of those oddballs thrown in where you have to adapt your strategy on the fly, and like, okay, this guy isn't bringing any of the decks I was prepared for. What do I ban here? Like, how does this work? But yeah, that kind of consistent strategy is definitely what's been favorable for the most players who have progressed forward. You know, that kind of long-term strategy lineup. But as I said, if you don't consider yourself necessarily on that level, and you know, let's be real, every player here is a quality Hearthstone player. They've achieved points, but even within this field of players, there are tiers, right? There are incredibly strong players, there are strong players, and there's possibly even another tier below that, right? We won't necessarily see come back time after time after time. You know, this is their one chance at making a shot. If you consider yourself potentially in that tier, then trying something a little bit different, a little bit off the wall, is potentially a decent idea.
And then you might make a name for yourself by playing something pretty weird at a high level.
Why not?
People might say that guy had a cool lineup.
Yeah.
I like that guy. But for those of you who might just be tuning in, we are a slightly delayed. We had our match earlier, Dog versus Snow, which was delayed due to technical issues at the venue that Snow was playing at. And since all of the players in the preliminary are playing throughout many different locations throughout the Americas, in switching over to Hotform and Mousethecat, we had to switch venues, which means we have a slight delay there. So we apologize. We hope that Sottle and I are at least informing you about some things that you might not know. Or if anything, you guys just like looking at our funny faces. I don't know.
Wow.
Great job, Sottle.
Thanks.
Doing
Thanks,
great.
buddy.
But yeah, looking at some of the other decks here as we move forward. The Hybrid Hunter from Mousethecat is sort of another deck. We said that one does have the good matchup against Control Warrior. Probably the deck that he brought, knowing that he would not be banning that if he faced up against it. So that's maybe where he built it off of. It's sort of similar to the deck that Rosti used at the Spring Championship. Maybe not quite as aggressive, but more of a hybrid-esque, and Rosti had quite a bit of success with that deck.
He did, yeah. I mean, this list has high mains packed into it as well, which I think if you're playing double high main, double Call of the Wild, it doesn't really matter what your other 26 cards are. You probably beat Warrior already, right? So if you are, you know, building a lineup, as you said, in mind that you're going to have to leave Warrior up a lot of the time, then that's definitely the build that you want to be going with. But it's interesting that he's tilted the rest of his deck towards aggression and early board contesting with the double Squire, double Abusive Sergeant build, so he can potentially fight back against Zoo starts, against Aggro Shaman starts, compete with some of these really explosive early decks. It's a build that I personally like. Like, I started messing around with it on stream and just as a joke called it like hybrid, because you're taking the hybrid list and then adding more of the mid-range cards back in. And it is still really, really strong against Warrior. You do absolutely crush Control Warriors still just by having those 4 power cards at the end of your curve. But yeah, if you can pick up Squires and stuff in the early game, you still do just fine against Zoo as well.
Yeah, a lot of it's dependent on that, though, and if you miss that, a lot of times you can get rolled over. It's one of the reasons why Hunter's not very popular right now, is because you are relatively...
well, right now in the weird Karazhan Week 1 time zone that we exist in. Yeah. Right now in the real world, Hunter is insanely popular.
Yes, right now in the real world, yes, but we are a week behind.
Yeah.
And we don't have the kindly grandmother to help us move on forward.
Or Barnes.
Thank God. Exactly. No, but we do have Morose.
Yeah. Wow.
We do have Morose.
I'll take that exchange any day, TJ.
There's currently one player, I believe, with Morose, and I'm actually really disappointed that he wasn't mentioned on the blackboard.
Is it J Billy B?
It's J Billy B.
J Billy B.
J Billy B. Hopefully we get to see his play later. He's a player with some flair to his deck building. Put Pantry Spider in his one of his decks. Put Morose in one of his decks as well. So definitely a player to look out for. But we haven't really talked about Hotform 6. We talked about his Temple Mage.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to note is he has standard Cthulhu Warrior. And we call it standard because it's standard based off of most people's perception of Cthulhu Warrior. But I think Cycle Cthulhu has sort of become the new standard.
I agree.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that's going to perform, because a lot of people have been going away from that. They say, well, if I'm going to play Cthulhu, I'm going to play Cycle Cthulhu. If I'm going to play Control Warrior, I'm going to play Standard Control Warrior. And so that's definitely something to look out for. And we're going to get to see it right off the bat. Warrior's a deck that we rarely got to see in Europe because it was banned in almost every match. I was expecting the same thing to be true for Americas as well, but in our first 1.5 match of the day, we are going to get to see it.
Again, in the time zone that we exist in, this is our first match, I guess, right?
Yes.
Sure. Do you keep that high main? Of course you keep that high main, TJ.
It's Control Warrior.
Yeah.
Mousethecat, you are a bold dude.
I think it's fine. As long as you have at least a 2-drop in your hand in this matchup, I'm okay with it. I think just like snap keeping high main and like mulliganing the rest of your hand to try and pick up early game is ambitious, but he's going to have plenty of stuff to do in the early game here with double Huge Toad and now an Abusive Sergeant. So that high main is going to make sure he's got one of those big power cards that he's going to need in the mid game, and all he needs to do is pick up a Call of the Wild or two, and that should be too much pressure for the Warrior to cope with. But there's one thing Cthulhu Warrior can do. It's bounce back in the late game by just healing for 20 for some reason.
We've seen many a game that have gone to the very late stages where the Cthulhu Warrior will be at like 2 health. Then bam, Bran, Ancient Shield Bearer, all of a sudden they're at 22. And another thing I want to point out is a lot of people sort of forget about Hotform, and they don't realize that he was the 2015 World Championship runner-up.
Yeah.
He made it to the grand final, and even though the grand final was sort of one-sided, making it to that stage is incredibly impressive.
Right. And it's yeah, I mean, it's hard to back that kind of thing up, but, you know, Hotform has focused a lot on his stream and his stream community and being a content producer. Hasn't really backed it up with too many other competitive results. But, you know, last season's World Championship format wasn't quite as long as this year's is, but it was still an incredibly long, grueling format. So to get all the way to the top 2 of that event, you don't just get there by high rolling. You have to know how to play the game a little bit.
Yes, you do. And Hotform definitely does. So we'll see. Thinking about just Ravaging Ghoul, which means he's probably thinking about just following up with another Ravaging Ghoul.
Yeah. How's this going to work out for him, TJ?
Not too well.
Yeah.
Because there's some really nice trades going on here for Mousethecat. Slam that sucker in and push 6 damage this turn. As long as he can pick up basically anything to do on turn 5, he's going to be in great shape.
I mean, honestly, even if it whiffs, like if it whiffs with something like High Main #2 or Call of the Wild, I don't think he'll be too upset about that, because he can spend turn 5 just with Direwolf hero power and then go from there with the security that he has all the gas he needs in his hand. But yeah, if he was to pick up something like Infested Wolf, something else to play on curve, does this list play Tigers? I'm pretty sure it does, right?
The mid-range Hunter list by Mousethecat or Hybrid Hunter, I don't think it plays Tigers because it plays too many one-drops.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
It opts to go for double Infested Wolf, which sometimes isn't as popular, and double Direwolf Alpha and double Tracking. So he really wants to basically flood the board early on, and then later in the game tracking into his big stuff if he doesn't draw it.
Yep.
And that's sort of the strategy that you go for with this deck.
Yeah, Tracking was a card that kind of disappeared from the meta for a very long time, but now it's come back, and it's a very misunderstood card by a lot of players. You know, a lot of newer players look at Tracking as like, why would I play this card? It just sends 2 of my cards into the bin. Like, why am I playing this? But when the discrepancy of an average card in your deck and Call of the Wild are so high in terms of power level, you just want to draw Call of the Wild every single game, and therefore Tracking is more like Call of the Wild than any other card you can put in your deck, and thus you play it.
Indeed. It's like you're guaranteeing it almost at a certain point in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, when you play ladder, sometimes it feels like it's guaranteed for them to have it on turn 8 anyway. But Tracking just makes it guaranteed.
I mean, it's really high odds though, right? By the time they get to turn 8, and by the time they've like King's Elect a minion out of their deck potentially, and cast a Tracking potentially, like, they're kind of entitled to have a Call of the Wild on turn 8 most of the time. It's an easy thing to get salty about, but in all fairness, they're kind of allowed to have it most of the time.
I'll give it to him. I'll give it to him. All right, well, this is sort of that last hump here where Mousethecat's going to have to get that last 8 health down. He's still a turn away from Call Wild, but he does have some burn in his hand. Ancient Shield Bearer, but that's a turn away.
It is.
So Hotform's got to find a way to clear as much stuff off the board and live till next turn, because that Ancient Shield Bearer is active. You can see the 2 Cthulhu minions on the board themselves. And so is there a way that Hotform can survive into the next turn? I don't see it. Judging by the hand from Mousethecat, but is there any way from Hotform's perspective that he can live on the board?
And this is all about, you know, 1 turn survival here for Hotform. Normally, playing to survive 1 more turn is usually just incorrect. You should try and find a play to win, but when your next turn is gain 10 life, that's when it suddenly becomes appealing. So all kinds of things will be going through Hotform's mind right now. Is like, do I clear my own board of minions to play around Unleash the Hounds? Like, all of these potential sources of damage will be things he's considering. Looking at the hand right now, we can see that it's all going to be slightly futile, but he'll be trying to consider his maximum option for keeping himself alive. And unfortunately for him, he's just not going to find the combination that beats the hand that Mousethecat has.
You can see just how tough High Main is to deal with for a warrior.
Yeah.
You have to have almost a perfect hand, and even then, it's so hard for you to have the reach to kill the High Main, and then have enough just resources to get those 2/2. So Mousethecat is going to take game number 1, and this is probably why Mousethecat had some confidence going into a matchup against Control Warrior.
Yeah.
Not baiting that away, and rightfully so, at least judging by that Hunter deck.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely extremely powerful. I said at the start, you know, you can generally make the rest of your deck as aggressive as you want and as fragile as you want, essentially. If you're packing that double High Main, double Call of the Wild, you're going to get the job done against controlling warrior variants more often than not, and that's just exactly what you saw there. He kept the High Main. He drew just basically enough stuff to keep him going. The Houndmaster turn was huge, but apart from that, all of his other turns were kind of just, you know, whatever, I'll just play some stuff. And then suddenly High Main came down, and it was just way too much to deal with. Backed up all the aggression, and that was game 1 in the bank for Mousethecat.
Turn 7.
Turn 7.
Didn't even need that Call of the Wild. And I can imagine even if Hotform was able to survive another turn, if that quick shot wasn't in hand,
Yeah.
10 health wouldn't have been enough.
No.
Not enough. So, yeah, Mousethecat takes that game 1. Now he has the Murloc Paladin as well as the Aggro Shaman remaining. Aggro Shaman is sort of the odd man out in this deck lineup.
Yeah.
It's the one that's probably going to have the most trouble, but Druid is one of the decks that it can just roll over.
It's very, very true, and it's got a start that's capable of doing it. But Hotform, on the other hand, does have one of the key cards in the form of Innovate to fight back. But I completely agree that the Aggro Shaman seems to be the unusual choice in this lineup, because otherwise you can be looking at this lineup and say, okay, he's just predicting everyone is going to bring Control Warriors, and he's just going to farm Control Warriors, in which case, sure, your lineup looks golden. But then the Aggro Shaman being sat in there as well is a kind of an unusual pick.
And then what? I guess you also do okay against Dragon Warrior, but then that's where the Aggro Shaman comes in, where it's like,
Again, yeah.
Yeah, why would you pick that? But maybe he just feels comfortable with Aggro Shaman. Aggro Shaman's a deck that a lot of players take to ladder, and they take to high ranks, and they get really comfortable with it. And looking at his list, it's just very, very standard.
Yep.
It's just the best Aggro Shaman list that's out there, except for one thing. He does have double Lightning Storm. And that means that he is trying to tech against Mirrors and Zoo.
I guess so, yeah.
But other than that, it's very just standard.
Interesting. Still choosing to persevere with the Lightning Storms instead of a Maelstrom Portal, despite having them available to him. How do you feel about that one, TJ?
Good old Maelstrom Portal. Maelstrom Portal is okay. I would maybe say it's good if you're playing against a lot of Zoo Warlocks.
Yeah, like it just constant Zoo, in which case, yeah, you're probably doing fine.
Or if you're building sort of a deck that's built around it, where you're playing a lot of spell-powered minions. I lost to a guy on ladder last night who was playing Kobold Geomancers.
Sick.
And he was playing Maelstrom Portal, and it was actually pretty high ranked, and he destroyed me. He had Azure Drakes as well, a lot of spells. And so maybe in that, but I just don't like it right now. I think Lightning Storm is superior currently.
All right, so the Innovate is going to be put to good use here from Hotform. He's able to dig through his deck, pick up some more removal options. So The Innovate in a one-off card there has allowed him to dominate the board with the Azure Drake and secure some more removal for his hand to fight for the board in the future turns. And this is looking like it's just going to have to be a Trog Abusive Sergeant here from Mousethecat. And this kind of just plays almost exactly into what Hotform wants to be doing this turn, but he can also just choose to go ahead and drop that Maya Keeper and let that Trog hang around for the meantime, knowing that even if it's hidden behind a Feral Spirits, which is kind of worst case scenario, he can still go ahead and wrath it on the following turn.
For sure. Big thing there is it might feel a little bit weird to use so many resources and so much damage to trade into an Azure Drake. But one, you have to realize that it's innervated out, so you're sort of trading up into that 2 cards. And 2, if your opponent coins out, or sorry, innervates out an Azure Drake, they have spells to back it up.
Yeah.
And you're going into turn 4, one of those big spells is swipe. If you ignore it and get swiped, you're locked out of the game. You weren't able to push enough damage, and that's just the end of it. So definitely a smart choice by Mousethecat. Sort of a necessary option.
Do I have caster goggles on here, TJ, or do you trade this Tunnel Trog into the 3/3? It seems kind of insane, and I'm wondering how tilted my opinion is because I'm staring at 2 rats on the other side of the board, but just ignoring that rat is there, right? Like, if you don't trade, there's just a great trade into the 2/3. You don't have enough mana to equip Doomhammer yet, so how are you dealing with that 3/1 next turn? Like, what does this do for you in the long run, just getting this face damage in?
Then you think back to that game you played 2 days ago on ladder, where you traded that 3/3. And you're at the end of the game, you're dead next turn, and you're 3 damage off lethal. And then you go face.
But like what I'm saying is like the decision with
I understand what you're saying.
I know, but like for the sake of the audience, like the decision with an aggro deck of whether you trade is almost always, do I net more damage over the course of the game by trading this right now? And I think in this case, the decision might actually be yes.
Yeah, there is some fringe scenarios where you might just be able to kill your opponent where the value of it or the damage over the course of the game is much lower because the game's going to end much quicker.
Right.
But we're still far away.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe you're right. Maybe Mousethecat thought that he's going to make the read that there's no wrath, that there's only a swipe, in which case he's happy absorbing a swipe and taking a full turn from his opponent in order to push that 3 damage. But yeah, it definitely seems like trading would have netted him a better position in this game.
But yeah, even in the world where there's no removal for the Tunnel Trog, right? Like, what ends up killing that 3/3 before it's able to just chew through your board?
Maybe a rock biter off the top.
Right.
Like, that's it. So now he's got to have some help from Tuskar Totemic, but Tuskar Totemic's got other plans.
Yep.
And those plans involve a healing totem.
They sure do. Hotform's hand just starting to run a little bit dry, but he is able to now dominate the board with the Power of the Wild, picks him up much more favorable trades on the board. But this is the kind of hand that you basically need your opponent to play into. You have great cards for just interacting with the board right now, but you don't have too much to maintain pressure if your opponent was just to jam Doomhammer here, which is looking likely to be exactly what happens.
And this is sort of where Mousethecat says, all of a sudden I have a resource advantage.
Yeah.
I am no longer an aggro deck. I have become the control.
I mean, Doomhammer in its shell, like if Shaman had a bunch of consistent life gain as the Nourish is torn from the top of the deck to refill his hand, that's exactly what he would have been looking for in this situation. But yeah, Doomhammer, if there was a bunch of just stable life gain available to Shaman, you know, more consistent than Healing Wave was, for example, it's actually a really effective control card, right? If you could just consistently face tank stuff for a bunch of damage every turn. But, you know, it's just not the way the card gets played. It gets played purely as an aggro card, pretty much.
Well,
nope.
Spell Pirate Totem, maybe a little bit better than Healing Totem, depending on these circumstances. But still, not the ones you're looking for the most from Tuskar Totemic. Want those Totem Golems, those Flame Tongue Totems, those Mana Tide Totems would be especially fantastic in this scenario where you're sort of running low on resources.
So this turn we Emperor and we Feral Rage the 3/2, and then next turn we can cycle the Wild Growth, play the excess mana, and then play Yogg all in the same turn.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Seems good, right? Let's do that.
All right, Hotform. Call him up. Let him know the plan.
That's my plan. Hotform might have something different. It will only be something like a 6 or 7 spell Yogg, I think. Or with the 2 from Wild Growth, maybe 7 or 8. It's cast, what? An Innovate, 2 Wraths, a Living Roots, Power of the Wild, 2 spells from Wild Growth, and this Feral Rage. So it's a decent looking Yogg based on the board that he's going to have to deal with.
Indeed.
Ooh, armor. Interesting.
Yeah, I guess that 3 health is not really doing much, and killing that, if you're planning on playing Yogg
he's going to Yogg it next turn anyway. Yeah, I like this.
Is
Hotform found a better plan. What a guy.
Hang up before he answers.
I take it back. Your plan's better. It's fine.
All right, well, now Mousethecat's going to try and load up the board and just hope that there's not a board clear here, because this is sort of his last hurrah, it feels like. With only situational cards and spells in his hand, he's not going to really find too much to do. The thing is, he does have second Doomhammer, so if this game goes long, he's got sort of that plan. But this game is, I don't think it's going long. He's already at 16 health. He's given up his totem up, so his ability to chain taunt totems in a row to try and stay alive miraculously has dissipated.
Right. Easy, very efficient clear on the Emperor Thaurissan here through picking up the Mage Hero power. Even if he didn't get it, he had the 1-1 to trade into it nicely, or his own face if he was going to value the 1-1 that highly. But against a Druid that can already Yogg you and swipe you at this point, you probably would have traded the 1-1 away anyway to mitigate some of that threat. And unless there is something spectacular picked up here, well, that's fairly spectacular.
And Mousethecat opted to not play Flame Tongue Totem last turn. A couple reasons. Maybe to play around Yogg, but also to sort of conceal the Flame Tongue Totem.
Sure.
So that way, if a big minion is played, he can play it from hand without the risk of it getting killed and trade up into something big since his board is really wide. He values that over being able to push 4 damage immediately the previous turn. Uh-oh. Here we go.
Ooh, charge. Does it? We wouldn't see the green border from this side, right? So we have no idea whether that thing is still alive.
We are in the dark.
Yeah.
I mean, this is potential. Okay.
Nope.
I was going to say potential lethal damage, but secrets. All we're missing is a board clear here. Lightning bolts.
It's in there somewhere. I can feel it. There's a flame strike. There's a flame strike in there somewhere. There always is. Wow. Yogg just really likes that spell damage totem, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that is just 11 damage going to be pushed to the face.
Well, it depends pretty heavily on what these secrets are.
Yeah, but no matter what they are, I think he's in great shape.
Yeah.
And that should be game. Hotform already had, I'd say, not a commanding lead, but it seemed like a lead in the game. Yogg-Saron just sort of solidified that position. So not the craziest of Yoggs, but still well above average, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. So he does have to deal with this Yogg-Saron here, and he does have 3 secrets in play as well that are protecting him from any kind of counter-lethal. If that Hunter Trap is, for example, Explosive Trap, then the game is already over. There is zero way for the Shaman to win. So
we did get word that it is explosive.
Well, then GG.
Yeah, but Mousethecat doesn't know that. He's got to be afraid. He attacked in, so it's not Snake Trap, it's not Freezing Trap.
Nope, I found the way he wins. He has to play a minion, get it mulched, and then draw his entire deck so that his mulched Reno is active, and then play that, and then we can win.
Solid plan.
Thank you.
Call him up.
Yep.
Get him on the line. But Hotform is going to take game number 2, so we're all tied up 1-1. A decent start for Hotform there, going into, it's a close matchup, the Yogg Druid, or Token Druid, I suppose.
Yeah.
Since not everybody includes Yogg.
Yeah.
We have to put those outliers in there. It's a weak matchup, but not by very much. And to get a win in that situation is actually crucial, considering how poorly that first match went. So all tied up 1-1. Now it's down to sort of that best of 3 scenario.
Yeah, and it wasn't the Yogg that you normally expect. It's not the Yogg that you kind of play for its intended purpose most of the time. Most of the time you're just playing Yogg to flip the table, clear the board, maybe draw you some cards. But that was just a Yogg to set up lethal. It was just, I'm just going to jam you in the face and you lose. So, yeah, the recognition that he picked up Explosive Trap as well was just so huge, because he knew if he could put his opponent to 2, then the game was just more or less over, barring incredible, ridiculous fringe scenarios. So, yeah, Hotform's put himself back in a position, and this is is going to be important to him because, as you said, he'll be wanting to make another fight and this last chance to try and book another spot at BlizzCon. And you do not want to be doing that from the lower bracket this early on. That's just an absolute nightmare. You just put yourself in for such a long day that towards the end, like, mental fatigue is almost always going to play a part if you've been grinding through the lower bracket for the entire time.
Yeah. Back-to-back BlizzCons is a thing that has been reserved for only players named Kranich.
Yes.
So far. And we'll see if he can make it back-to-back-to-back. It's going to be pretty tough, but Hotform can do it if he has that good performance here and makes it to the championship and wins it all.
Yeah. And there's a lot of players that are already out of the running for that, right? Like Ostkako. Ostkako has no chance of doing that now. So the pool of players that can potentially achieve back-to-back is dwindling, but Hotform is one of those players that's still in with a shout.
Alrighty. Well, let's go into game number 3 here. It's Hotform on the Cthulhu Warrior once again. And Mousethecat going to go with this aggro shaman. I think he really wanted to take that win because his next couple matchups could be tough. Hotform's Warlock deck is Reno Warlock, which can a lot of times be a good matchup for aggro shaman, but can sometimes be very bad if Reno's in their first 6 card or on their first 6 turns.
Yeah, I think it's slightly favored for the aggro shaman, honestly, because most of the time if they don't draw Reno, you win. Like, that's in your favor. But also there's a percentage of times where they did draw Reno, but you kill them on turn 5. Like, that happens. It's not unknown. So it's definitely a matchup they can win. And even this matchup where we both talked a little bit about how the aggro shaman is kind of a weird slot. Like, this isn't a horribly unfavored matchup for the aggro shaman, honestly, unless the warrior is also packing like Acidic Ooze or Harrison Jones. Some people I know even think this is favored for the aggro shaman.
Yeah, there's a lot of clunky minions for the Cthulhu Warrior, and they don't deal well with boards that are a little bit wider. They have to have the right answers at the right times, and sometimes they just have the right answers but at the wrong times. Brawl's not always going to be good. In the same case that say Shield Slam's not always going to be good.
Right.
So they do have removal, but their removal all fits sort of that specific aspect. And also missing Fiery War Axe is pretty crucial if your opponent, as the aggro shaman, has a good curve.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big reasons why Dragon Warrior is so destructive to this deck in particular is that they just don't miss their Fiery War Axe because they play 4 of them. They can just Alex Strauss' champion for you for pretty much the same effect, and unless you're coin totem goleming them, you don't really have any plays that interact with either of those starts particularly well.
It's become a verb.
Yeah.
It's happening.
We did it. We made it, George.
I'm going to go out coin totem goleming later.
Yeah.
It's going to be a real grand old time.
So many choices.
All right, well, now Hotform does pick up Ravaging Ghoul. Again, a great card, but situationally terrible against an aggressive shaman list.
Yeah. He's just going to go ahead and just play for minions on the board. This Cthulhu's Chosen does represent a lot of clearing power over a couple of turns here. It's a very, very awkward minion to deal with. And also, importantly, he's hit that magic 10 number very early now, right? So at no point in this game does he now have to have any of his plays hedged by the fact that he needs to bring his Cthulhu to 10. And that's a big deal. He is under a ton of pressure here by these 2 Tunnel Trogs that are being buffed by this Flame Reed Faceless, but at least now his power cards in his deck are active, and he can just play with his optimal choice of turn on any turn from now forward.
Exactly. That peace of mind is actually incredibly important. It changes the way you sort of play. And it allows you the option also to dig for those types of cards later on, knowing that you don't have to worry about fitting in an activation as well. So now we're faced with a decision where you're almost always going to trade that 1 health Tunnel Trog, because that attack last turn, instead of the trade on the 3-2, indicated almost 100% that my opponent has Ravaging Ghoul.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And his telegraph of that, I mean, how often does that actually work? I guess in the sense where it's worked because the Tunnel Trog has got off the board, right? So he's encouraged his opponent to trade. In that case, it works. But does turning a card like Ravaging Ghoul, like Brawl, these kind of situational cards, does turning it face up in your hand ever really pay off for you?
I want to say no, and I want to say that I disagree with that play for a couple of reasons. Another one is that you're also damaging your own Cthulhu's Chosen, which usually doesn't have an impact, but can potentially have an impact. depending on where you want to trade it into.
Sure.
You're almost always going to throw the Cthulhu's Chosen's Divine Shield into something first, and then bring it down to 1 health, but that's not always the case. And I don't think value trading, in a sense, in this matchup is the right call, because you're probably going to just outpower them in the late game with your armor gain. And so taking those good trades when you can, I think is important. And now all of a sudden he's got a 3-2 on the board that's going to deal 6 damage when it could have been just removed.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with your assessment here, and Mousethecat is putting together a pretty effective draw against this deck, honestly. He's had early pressure, now he's hitting some of the mid-game power cards with Flame Tongue Totems and Thing from Below, and he has hit that all-important Doomhammer, which in this particular matchup against this particular player with revealed deck lists is huge, because he knows this Doomhammer gets full value. There is no weapon destruction in this Cthulhu Warrior deck.
It's going to be 16 damage.
Yep. At least, at the very, very least.
No matter which way you slice it. And Mousethecat is thinking about playing this Lightning Bolt, but if he expects a brawl, he wants to hold on to that Lightning Bolt for burn, because that 9 health can actually be really tough to reach. And if he actually holds on to this Lightning Bolt, I really love that play. That's sort of some next level thinking.
I'm not so sure. I think, so if Brawl is the only thing you lose to here, then yeah, I can understand it, right? But you haven't seen a Disciple of Cthulhu yet, you haven't seen a Fiery War Axe yet, you haven't seen an Execute yet. So combinations of those 2 cards could potentially get you in trouble by allowing him to use the 4-2 to trade as well, but Mousethecat agrees with you, and in fact is even more committed to where that Lightning Bolt is going to end up going.
I think because you didn't see a War Axe, and because your opponent seemed to play not inefficiently, but not ideally, then he's more likely to have a brawl.
Okay.
And I don't know how much value that 4-2 has in removing, especially throwing 4 damage into it, because you can remove it next turn.
It just took 4 power off the board for the 4 damage that you sent face. Like, just right there, just first attack that it made, it's already broken even with the damage that you sent face.
Okay.
Just saying.
Is that a bad thing or a good thing? I can't wrap my head around it.
Well, okay.
I can't tell if you're agreeing with me.
All right, so by lightning bolting face instead of the minion, he netted 4 damage, right? Okay. And then the Cthulhu's Chosen immediately took 4 damage off the board by killing the Flame Tongue Totem, and now he sent 2 damage of his Doomhammer into it. So he is already behind 2 damage.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah. I gotcha. But if that had been a brawl, it would have been good.
And that's what I was saying. If Brawl is the only consideration, then yeah, 100% there is no reason to kill that 4-2, but I don't think it was the only consideration.
Okay. I will agree to you.
To me. You will agree to me.
Yes, I will send agreements in your direction.
Okay.
But I won't actually agree with you.
I agree in your general direction.
I'll just send some agreements that way.
All right, perfect. I'll take it.
Okay. It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Take what you can get. Ooh. Well then. You have to go for it. There's no other play. And that's really tough to get through. But Mousethecat needs 1 point of direct damage. He's at 1 health.
1 point of direct damage. Does a Flame Tongue do it? Oh, well, never mind. Lava Burst is more than enough. As long as he points it in the correct direction.
Yeah.
Hotform just mutters a rueful yep to himself as the damage is drawn. But when you're playing the most aggressive deck in the game, more or less, you are entitled to draw damage from the top of your deck.
And it's this Cthulhu Warrior deck. I mean, maybe Mousethecat had this plan all along. Aggro Shaman did have a great start, though.
Yes.
This is not how this matchup normally goes. He didn't have Totem Golem, but he did have a play on turn 1, a play on turn 2, a play on turn 3 into Doomhammer.
Yeah.
And those into, Flame is Faceless, and then Doomhammer, which is what you want. It forces your opponent to have removal. If they don't, you win. Forces your opponent to have a way to gain health to survive that 16 damage that's coming from that Doomhammer, or you win. So Aggro Shaman's asking the questions, and if Cthulhu Warrior doesn't have the answers, they just fall.
Yeah, and the Flame Wreath Faceless actually had 4 points of charge damage attached to it as well. As if that card wasn't powerful enough, when it's buffing Tunnel Trogs at the same time, it's just completely absurd. And as I said, like he just put together kind of the perfect draw. He hit his mid-game beef at the right time. He got his Doomhammer, and sometimes in that matchup, you're tentative to play Doomhammer because of how much of a blowout it can be. You know, sometimes you feel so secure. It's like, well, Doomhammer's probably the only way I lose this game right now. I'm just going to like develop more minions and push face damage. But when the deck lists are revealed as they are in this tournament, he knew looking at that warrior list, there is no Ooze, there's no Harrison Jones, nothing of the sort. So he knew as soon as he could get that Doomhammer down and start the clock, then he was going to be in a really, really strong position. And that's exactly how it panned out.
It was. Had a few outs for lethal there at the end. And just an update, one of the players has stepped away for just a moment. So we'll be jumping into the match in about 2 minutes, maybe less. Let's take a look at the remaining deck list. We just have Murloc Paladin left for Mousethecat. And the 2 decks that he has, just to beat one of them, is that Cthulhu Warrior and a Reno Lock.
Yeah.
So we got some control matchups. Think back, Sottle, to the Winter Championship for America's region.
TJ, I'm old, and that was a very long time ago, so you might have to refresh my memory.
It was the age of Murloc Paladin and Control Warrior. And back then, that matchup was very interesting. There was a lot of crazy stuff that went on. People thought that Murloc Paladin was favored going in, but then there was like this secret key that unlocked the matchup for Control Warrior, which involved holding on to taunts and holding on to brawls. Yeah. And it ended up being Warrior favorite at the end. But
well, actually, towards the very end, I think the Paladins actually were able to counter the Brawl Belcher strategy by holding on to a charge of True Silver the whole time, so they didn't have to sink as much damage into the Sludge Belcher with the Bluegill Warrior. So yeah, it was like a fascinating matchup that really, really went back and forth. But now it's slightly different because there just kind of isn't enough damage to beat a Cthulhu Warrior in the deck.
There's not enough damage to beat the Cthulhu Warrior, and also there's not in Cthulhu Warrior, there's not even less armor gain.
Right.
Because you still play Ancient Shield Bears, so you can get even further out of range of that.
Yeah.
And you're not reliant on a fatigue win condition. Because you do have Cthulhu, Hotform does run a Doomcaller. So even if you do manage to do it, you still have sort of a little bit of inevitability in this deck. But we are going to see the Reno Warlock first, and I can't even tell if this is an even better matchup because this is a Cthulhu Reno Warlock from Hotform. So
I think generally a control deck that cannot go above 30, anything Paladin feels okay against. We are kind of flying by the seat of our pants a little bit here because this is a very new experimental list, as we talked about, from Mousethecat. He's got double Ivory Knight in there. He's got double Psychotron in there as well, which is a really, really niche inclusion that I definitely haven't seen much of. So how this exact tech build of it lines up against other decks will be interesting. He's not playing, for example, Ragnaros Firelord. He's only playing the Light Lord. He has Tyrion in there as well. He's playing both Forbidden Healings on top of both Ivory Knights, but no Leon Hands, which interests me because Leon Hands honestly felt like one of the power cards in anything Paladin to me a lot of the time.
It did. Also to note, he's not playing many big threats. He's not playing Sylvanas or Cairn. No sort of N'Zoth in there. Just on 2 targets, which has been seen in anything Paladin. It was seen a few times in Europe. Just Tyrion and Ragnaros Light Lord. Those are basically his only late game threats outside of just anything can happen your opponent and get a bunch of Murlocs.
Yep.
With the 2 Ivory Knights, as you mentioned earlier in the broadcast, does have a chance to get 3, potentially 4 anything can happens.
Yeah, sure.
Which can get ridiculous, but
he's not going to need the 3rd one too often against Reno Lock, because even after the Reno, as long as you've invested all of your Murlocs already, the 2nd anything that you play is a roll between either 30 or 32 damage in the 2 combinations that you can get. So as long as there are not pesky taunts sat in the way, that is more than enough damage to get the job done, even if they do Reno you on curve. So it's going to be a struggle here for the Reno Lock, mainly because Mousethecat has been able to draw all of his key Murlocs so quickly. He's only missing the 1 Bluegill Warrior now to complete the set.
Which is scary if you're the Reno Lock, because also this makes trades so good for Mousethecat. If there's an unchallenged Murloc War Leader on the board, it means Bluegill Warrior becomes a 2-mana 4/2 charge, which is one of the best ways you can remove anything in the game. And it also just feels really good because you're happy to remove it off the board and you're happy that it died.
Yep.
because you're going to bring it back later.
Right.
So just overall win-win-win, and Hotform is going to be in so much trouble.
Yeah, the Murlocs are basically just kind of unappreciated pawns in this deck. You just play them out there and sacrifice them, and you actually have a little party when they die, because in your mind, they're basically just reduced to units of mana, right? It's just like, I have to spend this amount of mana on each of these cards at some point this game. If I can get value out of them, then great, but buddies, your main job is to die this game. Just remember that.
But don't worry, you'll come back.
Yeah.
You have to promise
You'll come back bigger and stronger than ever before.
Yes, you will. I feel like many people have been told that in history, and it hasn't worked out for them. But it works out for the Murlocs.
Of course it does, yeah. Why wouldn't it?
All right, well, let's see if Mousethecat can just draw a quick anything, and that's just going to spell almost doom for Hotform. He does have Brand plus Cthulhu's Chosen. Or sorry, Disciple of Cthulhu, which means that he will be able to get that Cthulhu above 10, as well as clear off one of these Murloc War Leaders, which makes the second one more manageable.
He did, in fact, draw an anything this turn, so that's nice.
Yes, he did. Actually, when I was testing out the card, one time I picked anything without any Murlocs in my deck, just because I wanted the 10 heal. Because the other two were like, it was a secret and a Steal of Champions.
Sure.
I was like, I don't want to Steal of Champions. I just want to heal for 10.
Yeah, 6 mana, 4/4 heal for 10. I mean, that's a good card in the right situation. But
yeah.
The power of Bran in Cthulhu decks is something that you just saw very apparently on the previous turn, because in one fell swoop, he was able to activate his Twin Emperor in his hand there, perfectly on curve for turn 6, leading into turn 7. But there is still that Murloc problem on the board. I mean, there's only one Bluegill left, but anytime you're leaving up a War Leader, you do always feel slightly afraid of the extra value that they'll be able to get from their Bluegills.
So he's debating whether or not he wants to play the Twin Emperor, because Twin Emperor is, you said Warlocks can't go above 30, but Twin Emperor later in the game is one of the ways you can kind of go above 30
Sure.
against Anything Can Happen Paladin. So there is a strategy that revolves around you holding on to it and trying to clear the board the good old-fashioned way with spells. But it's very risky, and Hotform I don't think has the health or the spells to spare in order to do that, so we're just going to throw him out now.
Yeah, definitely agree. It's also weak to Keeper of Oldman, as you can see here. By playing it when there is a 3/1 on the board, you can definitely expect it to be weak to Keeper of Oldman specifically. Looking at the list, though, that is a 1-of in Mousethecat's deck, so probably not something that you're too concerned around playing around most of the time, but there is that fear equity value, right, that George C. talked about so eloquently in his original interview, where tech cards like Keeper of Oldman, even if they're a 1-of in your deck, when they're revealed, they put doubt in your opponent's mind that shouldn't necessarily be there statistically most of the time.
Yeah, his original argument was when he put Leroy Jenkins
just in everything.
Into almost everything, yeah, because just having Leroy in your deck makes your opponent play more afraid as the match goes on, because they're always afraid that Leroy's just going to burst them out of the game. So definitely a smart kid.
What do you think about this Psychotron decision over the Keeper of Oldman Outdoor Peacekeeper play?
I'm not sure. Psychotron can absorb a lot of hits, especially in Reno Warlock, where they don't really have ways to poke something.
Sure. Man, I wish you guys saw that hand gesture just then. You guys are missing out. You don't get the full TJ experience while you're watching these games of Hearthstone.
Well, yeah, they don't really have ways to do that except for maybe Mortal Coil or something along those lines. So a cheap spell, potentially Hellfire, but sort of risky there.
Even then, like, how good do you actually feel about Mortal Coiling a Divine Shield?
So Hotform's just going to go ahead and go with Shadow Flame. So decent value out of it. This board tends to not go wide that often unless they're killing you. But you do have to have a way to deal with that first anything.
Sure.
And so maybe a little bit ahead of himself there, but still has the Hellfire. There it is! He got it! And Hotform is going to know.
No, he's not. He's only going to heal for 8.
Oh, that's right.
It could be Lay on Hands. It could be Lay on Hands. It could be any Lay on Hands or anything. There are no other spells it could be, I believe, but it's only one of those two.
So beautiful.
So now Now Hotform has to think, right? Because if he's boned up on his Ivory Knight mechanics, he'll of course know that that card could be anything can happen because it only healed for 8, but 8 was the maximum. So now, how much fear? We talked about fear equity on the previous turn. How much fear does that pick put into Hotform's mind going forward?
You just look at this matchup and you're like, what am I going to do to win?
Yeah.
How do I win this game when my opponent just seems like they have so much going for them right now? But this is you do not want to lose in the first round of a preliminary, because you have to win something like 8 matches in a row, and most of those are played today to make it into that final stage.
He's going to choose to not even protect his taunt here. He could have just value traded the 4/2 Divine Shield into the 4/4, which, you know, it would expose him to the second consecration a little bit, but that same consecration now removes his only protection from Murlocs charging at his face.
Yeah. But Mousethecat doesn't have a way to sort of punish this, and so just going to rag and say go back up to 30, have 8/8 on the board, which will be challenged by Big Game Hunter, but he's got 2 anything can happens in his hand, and one of them's in his deck. He's got 3 of them. He can use 1 to remove the board. He can use 1 to do whatever the heck he wants.
Yep.
And the third one, that's the one. The thing is, though,
that's the one that gets him.
The thing is, though, is 3 anything can happen. Is that a liability? Because that's a lot of war leaders. What if you summon 6 war leaders from your third anything can happen? Because 2 are going to die. 2
then
have died.
Your 1 bluegill does 14. Yeah, it's not great, is it? No.
It's very unlikely that you do, because there's also going to have been a lot of bluegills that die. But
he is already war leader heavy, though. If he starts playing any Finns now, he's at 2 war leaders, 1 bluegill. So then that doubles up to 4 and 2, and then suddenly your pool is kind of diluted with war leaders.
So the sooner he plays his anyfin before he gets that bluegill, the more chance that is of happening. And I think that's sort of playing in Mousethecat head right now. He doesn't really have anything to think about as far as what's on the board, and the game plan is on the board. So the only thing that he has to think about in his head right now is how are my anyfins going to work?
Yeah.
And so that's got to be going through his head. And there also is just the thing where he might just die. Because that's a lot of stuff on the board.
He may just die. He needs to pick up a board clear here. He doesn't. He picks up Psychotron. So if he was to cast anything right now, he has 1 charging bluegill to go through for 6. And he can trade again to take the damage on board down to 10. So yeah, he's entitled to feel reasonably comfortable here. Power Overwhelming Shadow Flame combination in Hotform's hand is going to be 1 damage off here.
1 damage. He's counting it.
Yep. 17 by my count, which means he's not quite there. So now the pool is, what, 4 war leaders and 2 bluegills. So that's 2 bluegills charging for 10 damage each.
If these little guys die.
If these guys die. And if they don't, I mean, that's just more damage on the board anyway. They're still there. Like, the same thing happens, right? Except these minions essentially have charge. So.
Yep. And there'll be big boys as well.
Oh, yeah.
So now Hotform is going to tap. So this is leaning towards Reno, and he's going to need to trade. Well, he doesn't need to. I don't think he's dead. Oh, no, he's probably dead. It's 9 plus...
It would be, so 2 bluegills charging for 10 each 18. Would be 20, and then these 2 would get to charge...
It would be exactly 30.
It would be 30, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he does need to trade.
Yeah.
Exactly 30. Wow. Interesting how that works out. And going to go ahead and cycle a little bit, too, with the Immortal Coil, trying to get some efficient damage in. And Mousethecat now facing another situation where he needs stuff to do. Forbidden Healing is stuff to do.
Is it, though?
Well, I think you are afraid.
I mean, if you can get the second anyfin cast right now, right? You can do that. 4 minions die, so you can't then cast Solemn Vigil at the end. But you can get the second anyfin cast and take out 8 power again off the board, so you wouldn't be feel threatened from dying.
Okay.
And then at any point you then draw the third anyfin, the game is just over.
You win. Yeah. There is actually 1 more taunt left in Hotform's Reno deck. I believe it's the Crazed Worshipper. I'm going to go and double check. That is correct. He does run 1 copy of Crazed Worshipper. So that is a card that can stand in his way.
I'm not sure I like this. I think having seen the Reno come down, I think you have to identify that the third anyfin is going to be the one that now wins you the game.
But the thing is, Mousethecat realized that Okay, no, never mind. Yeah, I think it's good. He knew last time that Hotform didn't have 8 reach from hand, or else he would have killed him. So in this situation, if he takes that power off the board and puts him in a situation where he has at least an 8 health leeway, he should be okay.
Sure.
As long as he has Forbidden Healing to come up. But, I mean, this play is decent too. You're sort of putting more stuff on the board to trade into. But it also means that next turn, if you're planning on casting anything, you can't Forbidden Healing.
Right.
So if he had casted anything that can happen this turn, he had the option of healing to almost full next turn if he got into a threatening range. And this might just be game. Actually, it is game.
Yeah. I was going to bring up the point of, like, occupying more minions on the board gives him a bit more security against Cthulhu, but then I just quickly looked at what he did and was like, well, he just dies to Cthulhu anyway, so what he did played around very little. So personally, I would have liked to see anything number 2 cast at that point, because that would have raised his Murloc pool to the point where third anything at any point was lethal. So,
Well, we're not going to get to see that third anything. Didn't even get to see 2. Little disappointed.
Yeah.
But alas, we get a pretty cool matchup for the last one. It's Murloc Paladin versus a standard Cthulhu Warrior. So if anything, 2 players with that seem like they're really proficient with these deck lineups, playing at a high level, should be a decent indication of the feel of this matchup at least.
Yeah, and this is the matchup more than the one that he's just played, where Mousethecat is going to have wanted to pick up that third anything. And let's hope that he hasn't used up his one and only 10% roll this tournament on the on that matchup where it just did him no good in the end.
Is that really the math?
I think it's 11% exactly to get
11%.
one specific Paladin card that you need. I believe that's accurate. Citation needed. Please feel free to tweet at me and tell me I'm stupid if that's wrong. But yeah,
for now, let's all blindly follow Soddle.
Why not, right?
Into the depths.
When have I ever steered you wrong before?
Not that I can remember.
There you go.
All right, well, let's get into it. So I'm pretty sure we've been up here for like 5 hours. That's what it feels like.
It does. It does. But honestly, TJ, when I'm with you, time just flies past so quickly that it could have been 5 minutes for all I know.
I'm so humbled. I'm so humbled. Thank you so much, Soddle. But it's time for the last game of the series. It's game number 5, Cthulhu Warrior versus Murloc Paladin.
He's done it again. Mouse the cat is incredibly good at drawing Murlocs. Maybe it's the animal connection. I don't know. He is.
I was thinking of a good joke there, but lost it.
Well, so he's a cat. Despite being named Mouse, he is actually a cat, which means he's pretty good at catching fish.
And he's also disguised as a mouse.
Oh, so the Murlocs trust, despite being fish and him being a cat, because he's disguised as a mouse, the Murlocs trust him and come out into his hand.
All right, well.
Nailed it. Hard-hitting analysis from this particular desk at the Hearthstone Championship Tour.
Oh, there.
Thank you. The comedic timing of that emo was phenomenal.
Thanks, Hotform.
Yeah.
So Mousethecat might have had a little bit of an issue there, and it looks like he's had a disconnect.
Wow.
Yeah, it seemed like he pressed the intern button there, but didn't do it.
I mean, he must have disconnected. There's no way that he looked at that opening hand and went, you know what, I'm going to pretend I DC'd here and get a mulligan. No, that hand was great.
That hand was fantastic.
Yeah.
But alas, he did disconnect. So back to square one here. It was on the mulligan, so it will automatically be a regame.
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to keep playing. He disconnected but reconnected.
Ah, perfect.
I noticed he hit the end turn button there at the end.
Okay.
And he looked relieved.
Nice. Yeah, because he wants to keep that hand, right?
Yeah.
Like, he does not want to go back into a new mulligan.
Yeah, so... All right, Acolyte of Pain, drawn on, or played on turn 3. Really great against Control Paladins because unless they have Coin Truce over, they have no way to deny draws.
Right, and in fact, honestly, I'm starting to reach the point in these kind of matchups where if I'm playing against a player I respect, I actually think it's potentially wrong to play the Acolyte in this situation because I know a good player will not hero power on turn 2 unless they have Coin True Silver or Coin Keeper of Alderman, for example.
Something to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a little dance there where you know, maybe Hotform doesn't give the level of respect to Mousethecat that he would to someone else, or maybe he just doesn't share that philosophy with me. But that early interaction between hero powers and Acolyte of Pains is something that you need to learn to navigate very, very quickly if you're going to be playing a Control Paladin style deck.
Or maybe he just is happy with one card.
Sure. Sure.
It's also a possibility there if he thinks that this matchup has the potential to go to fatigue, which I don't think is that likely, given that, you know, potential for more than 2 anyfins. Also, Hotform does have Doomcaller, so if his first Cthulhu gets killed, he still has that sort of inevitability with the second one.
Yeah, sure. I'm thinking more specifically about like Freeze Mage, for example, right? Where you'd be tempted to drop your Acolyte of Pain directly into a 1/1, but that kind of scenario. But yeah, sure, in Control Warrior, sometimes you do just play Acolyte just to cycle through for 1 card. That's perfectly fine. But the Justicar train has already begun, and this is not what Mousethecat is going to want to have seen here. So if you're in Mousethecat's situation, do we just play Ivory Knight right now and just find out whether we can win the game? Like, is there a third anything?
He does have... Oh! He got it! Snap picked, and Hotform has to know. And Mousethecat has all of his Murlocs. He had played a Bluegill, he plays a War Leader, and he has a War Leader and a Bluegill in his hand. So in the next 5 turns, if he can pick up another anyfin, he might be able to just blow the game out before Hotform can even build an armor total.
Now, I understand he was excited to see that anyfin, but again, the snap pick is probably a slight mistake here, because again, it only healed him for 6. It didn't heal him for 10, so...
Look, Hotform, I picked an Avenging Wrath.
The quantity, yeah, exactly. He's like, oh, what, you picked Avenging Wrath against Cthulhu Warrior? No, you've picked a high-value card immediately that healed you for at least 6. Of course it's anything can happen, based on how quickly you snapped it. If he'd have made a song and dance about considering some options, maybe Hotform would give it credit for being Enter the Colosseum or Avenging Wrath or something like that, but this anyfin number 1 or number 3, depending on which way you want to look at it, is directly face up in Mousethecat's hand right now.
Ooh, this game is love watching games like this where you know that there's that card in one of the player's pockets that'll just win him the game. And the hard part is sort of getting there and then finding the second one. And we'll see how Hotform's gonna manage this. His Ancient Shield Bearer is currently not active. He still needs 1 more activate. He does have Disciple of Cthulhu, so he can fit that in, but he can't start building up that armor total to that critical amount yet, that critical mass of armor that you need to withstand 3 anything can happen over the course of the game.
Is that everything now from Mousethecat? I lost track a little bit. Is that all 4 Murlocs?
That is all 4 Murlocs. All 4 Murlocs. So we currently have 2 of each in the pool. And we definitely need to keep track of this, because with 3 anything can happen and a control mirror here could be a little bit interesting. And Tyrion off the top as well. So now Mousethecat has all of his Murlocs dead, Tyrion in play, and anything can happen in hand, and an Ivory Knight to potentially pick up a 4th.
Sure, let's do it. Let's just get 4 of them.
Let's truly take the spirit of the card anything can happen when it comes to Ivory Knight in this deck. No. We wanted new cards.
Yeah, I mean, so far, Ivory Knight by far and away. I mean, we have watched 1 and a bit games, matches of Hearthstone right now, and Ivory Knight has been, you know, the biggest breakout in both of them so far. So,
yeah, last game it was sort of cut short a little bit since the card was used, but the second natural one wasn't, so it didn't really make too much of a difference. But in this matchup, you can almost guarantee that it is, and now Hotform has to sort of make the decision to remove the Tyrion or develop the Twin Emperors, and he would still be able to remove, but he'd have to spend an Axe Charge and the Disciple of Cthulhu.
All right, Mousethecat, the number currently is 39 and growing. Enjoy, my friend. Pretty sure with a 3rd anyfin, he's still probably favorite to get there if he draws the other 2 anyfins in decent time. But he's going to need to pick up some more cycle, and I don't like that look on his face right now. I really, really hope this is not another disconnect. He looks like he's calling for admin detention. This game is so finely poised right now. Yeah. I do not want to lose this game purely for selfish purposes, as much as it would be terrible for both of these players to go through this again. But I want to see this game resolved, TJ.
Hey, Ma, come look. I got an anyfin from my Ivory Knight. That's what he was yelling.
Okay, well, everything's fine then.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. But it's not looking good. Maybe he can reconnect in time.
Let me think.
So yeah, looks like we are just getting word that in case it wasn't readily apparent from what was going on stream, on screen there, he has unfortunately disconnected, which as the rope was already burning down, it seems very, very unlikely that he'll be able to reconnect to play out the game in a fair fashion. I mean, maybe if he can get back into the game having skipped that turn, he will assess that my situation right now is still better than restarting this game from scratch. I don't know what the ruling will be, but but that was an awesome looking game of Hearthstone that we just lost.
It's going to be at his discretion, I think, if he's able to reconnect at all. If it's not, then it would be a regame, since no player had guaranteed lethal presented on board or anywhere close to it.
Yep.
So we did get confirmation that it will be a regame, unfortunately, which is it's a real bummer. We were almost going to get to see triple anything, but the dream is still alive, Sottle.
He has a 100% track record with nailing anythings from Ivory Knight, so I have faith that he can do it again, TJ.
So far in competitive matches broadcasted on twitch.tv/playhearthstone, Ivory Knights have presented the option of anything can happen 100% of the time, including in Dogs match.
Oh, you're right. Wow, TJ stats. Yeah, it was.
No, that's not a TJ stat. That's a real stat. TJ stats are completely made up.
Okay, sure. Yeah, it was like Seal of Champions, anything, and a 1-mana Blessing of Might, right? Yeah.
That is correct. So, so far, Ivory Knight is just anything can happen machine.
Yeah, it's just a 6-mana anything that you then have to pay 10 more mana for your anything from.
That card would be auto-include if it was 6 mana 4/4. That healed you for 10 and gave you another anything can happen.
Yeah, that card is absolutely busted.
Yeah, in this specific scenario that we've created.
Yeah, that theoretical card that doesn't actually exist is completely broken.
Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I'm happy when my opponent plays Ivory Knight on turn 6 and heals for like 2.
Yeah.
And then I just kill them the next turn because they're a paladin.
Is that just what you do to paladins?
This is what I do.
You just want to murder them.
Look out, everybody out there who's playing paladin on the ladder.
Yeah.
At the same time that I'm queuing up a deck that's quite aggressive.
But like, jokes aside, let's take a moment here because we've accentuated the importance of this first game for both of these players because no one wants to make the run through this tournament through the lower bracket. So the mindset of these two players right now as they're both having to readjust, I mean, both of those players probably sight unseen felt like they were in a reasonable position, right?
Yeah, sure.
Hotform probably knew there was one anything in hand, but he was starting to gain so much life. He had board dominance. You know, there was the Tyrion weapon that could be swinging in, but he was pretty confident that he was going to start stacking up some life totals very, very quickly. And, you know, from Mousethecat's perspective, with the third anything in his deck, he was feeling good as well. So how will both of these players feel right now? You know, who has the mental advantage going into this sort of situation? Does Hotform just have it on experience? Like, what?
I don't know. Mousethecat seems like he's in a pretty relaxed state. Even when dealing with what looked like a disconnect in probably a favorable position for him, he still looked calm. You know, it looked like he was just calling over the admin or whoever was on site with him and just like presenting them with the issue that he had.
Right.
Not really panicking or anything like that. So he looks pretty calm. But yeah, Hotform, you really just need life to win that game. As long as you draw the brawls in a timely fashion, you're okay. The third anything can happen. It's a little weird, though, because you don't have a third brawl.
Yeah.
But at that stage, you might be able to draw into Cthulhu and or fatigue your opponent.
True.
Or they just beat you with the third because you don't have a third brawl. I don't know. Third anything can happen just throws a really big curveball into that match.
It kind of gets crazy because at that point, so depending on the roll that you get from the second anything can happen, there can be 2 different Murloc pools of what's actually revived.
Yeah.
But so I'm trying to do insanely quick maths on like on average how many Bluegill Warriors you get and therefore how much damage you do. But
you have to not use a brawl to kill the first anything.
Right.
Which is actually quite doable because a lot of times that's the one they trade with.
Yeah.
So they trade their bluegills. You'll be left with war leaders, which is okay. You can deal with those relatively easily. Then have the second brawl immediately, or the first brawl immediately for the second anything can happen, and then the second brawl and the life total to withstand the amount of damage that the third anything can happen could possibly do. So, I mean, with Just Scar out on 6, with Ancient Shield Bearer played, he was getting to the point where he might have been able to do that. So still the match is a toss-up, and still we've yet to see how this one resolves because we really don't know how it's going to play out.
But yeah, no Sludge Belcher in the format anymore, which was such a huge deal because of the amount of just individual damage that you had to sink into that. Like, it tanked at least 2 Bluegill Warriors, which was like 20 damage some of the time. So no such answer in the Cthulhu Warrior deck. There is that Craze Worshipper, as you said, but that's not quite going to get the same level of protection done for you.
It'll absorb 1 hit at the most. But as we get settled to get back into this matchup, we're going to send it over to Cora, who's got some updates with Admirable at the Blackboard.
Welcome back to the Blackboard. I'm joined once again with Admirable, and what we're figuring out some of these disconnect issues. We're just going to update you once again on the state of the tournament. So 168 players began, and we're already in round 3 for some of them. So let's go ahead and take a look at how everyone's doing.
Yeah, I mean, taking a look at the bracket, this is updated here. As you mentioned, 168 players competing from all sorts of locations across North America so far. I mean, the fact that that there's so many at Santa Ana, the esports arena location, I've been to that one a couple times. It's a fantastic place to be. Just looking throughout the central part of the United States here, where Bloodyface, a very strong player that a lot of players don't recognize his name outright. And then in the east, taking a look at the stacked Fairfax location, where it looks like almost all of Luminosity Gaming has showed up with a newly formed team. And of course in Canada, where Hotform is looking to secure that back-to-back BlizzCon finish. His final chance to do it is right here, and the Latin America region.
Yeah, I would be absolutely surprised if we didn't find a top 8 finisher from that Fairfax location. Just so many high-profile tournament and ladder players. And, of course, the Tavern Heroes you can't forget about. 32 players who actually won through a bracket in their local fireside gatherings and then made it all the way here. So if we go ahead and take a look a little bit more in-depth at some of our bracket updates, Frozen versus Firebat was a match we were all sort of hoping to see on stream. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. And more unfortunately for Firebat, Frozen ended up taking that match 3-1. Admirable, I know you wanted to see Firebat come back as a repeat world champion. What do you think about this?
Well, this is one that's particularly interesting to me because Firebat's style has tended to be very targeting the metagame for this, and Frozen happens to be a player that tends to go against that grain. So not knowing the particulars of this matchup, my impression would be that he may have been caught a little bit off guard by what Frozen has brought. Have to take a closer look at the deck list there, but dropping in the second round, it's going to be a tough road back for if he's going to make it back to BlizzCon. In the second round with Nostum versus Cap'n Crunch, again, would really be interested to see how this one went. Nostum, one of my picks to make it all the way through, a very tough player, and picking up 3-2. Always happy from my perspective to see.
All right, well, we do have the match ready for you guys. Let's throw it back over to the desk with TJ and Sottle.
Hey guys, we're back.
No way, we're still here.
With Sottle and I, but we should be jumping back into the match between Hotform and Mousethecat momentarily, as we have gotten the issues resolved. We've got a practice game in, and looks like everything was settled as far as we can tell. We are going to be in game number 5. It's Murloc Paladin versus Cthulhu Warrior. Is that set last matchup?
Yeah, and what else is there to say? Honestly, we've kind of beaten the intricacies of this matchup to death during the unfortunate downtime that we've had. So we've elaborated pretty much exactly what's going to happen. He's going to be looking for those extra anythins off Ivory Knight. If that doesn't happen from the get-go, then it's going to be an uphill struggle. He's going to be looking for the warrior to whiff on a lot of his life gain and be able to pressure some chip damage with some of the early minions that he has, like loot hoarders, to keep the armor under control, but that's easily dealt with by most of Warrior's stuff. So if the warrior is able to get above that 32 mark, or well above that 32 mark, and there is no third anything, then it's probably going to be fairly one-sided. But I hope, for the sake of me, for the sake of Mousethecat, for the sake of the broadcast, that we see a game as finely poised as the one that we just saw.
Only time will tell. And now that we've exhausted that matchup, we have to go next level.
I'm scared. When TJ says he's going to go next level, that's when you really feel the fear in your heart.
The thing is, I'm already always next level.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So going beyond the next level is incredibly scary. There is a way that you can play Murloc Paladin decks aggressively. Everybody calm down.
Tell me more.
He does have tools in the deck, and I'm going to bring it up just for a moment here. If he does manage to get a good start, he can just try and win on like turn 10 with an anything can happen. It happens. I lost a game like 2 days ago where I was playing the Psycho Cthulhu, which arguably has more early game removal than traditional Cthulhu, and he just steamrolled me. He had like Bluegill Warrior, Murloc War Leader, True Server Champion, and he just started hitting me in the face. And I couldn't do anything about it. And if you can't draw your health gain, it is a possible win condition, but it's very rare. What do you think, Sottle?
I'm flabbergasted. I mean, okay,
hit me with that brutal honesty.
Forget everything that I just said about wanting to see a matchup that was as evenly poised as what we. I just want to see that happen now because I do not believe you. I do not think it's possible to run down a Cthulhu warrior with loot hoarders and wild pyromancers. It's not happening. No, you lie.
All right, well, we just got an update that Hotform and Mousethecat, we will not be seeing the conclusion of that match. Instead, we're going to see if we can get to a new match.
Do we just cast this whole tournament? Is that what's happening?
What's going to happen is we're going to get to Game 5 of every match, and then there's going to be, well, you guys still haven't casted a full match yet, so just stay up there.
You technically have not fulfilled the terms of your contract. You have not cast a single full match of Hearthstone. You must stay. Yeah.
All right, well, we do have word that the next match we will be broadcasting on the stream is going to be Bloody Face versus Frozen. So we'll see who's going to take the lead by game 4 in that one. And then we'll move on to the next one. No, I'm kidding. We will have this full match broadcast for you guys. Yeah. We apologize for any delays. We are trying to coordinate with the venues to make sure that they have their the connections in their clients set up well, but these are things that we don't really have in our control. So Bloody Face vs. Frozen, though, is a pretty good match. Frozen was one of my picks on the blackboard.
Right.
And he's already making his way through that winner's bracket, so I'm happy to see him in the next match.
Yeah, taking out Firebat as well early on, which, who was it that picked Firebat on the board? I can't quite recall off the top of my head. It was Admirable, as he's just...
No, it wasn't Admirable.
It was Kibler. Right, yep. Yeah, okay.
Admirable picked Nassim and Flo.
Battle of two picks that came up early, but just taking out a world champion early on in the first round, and that's going to be a huge uphill struggle for... Like, Firebat is not really in any shape to pick up a last call spot, so this was really his last opportunity to come back as one of our defending world champions, and if he's in the lower bracket already, he is hanging on by a thread.
Well, to give you guys some more updates and to get us ready to jump into Bloody Face versus Frozen, let's head over to Cora, who's standing by at the blackboard.
Thank you, TJ. We're back once again at the blackboard. I'm still joined with Admirable, and it's been an interesting day already. 2 hours into it, and we have yet to finish one match entirely. But we've certainly seen both some good and bad moments, and we actually had a chance to go over the first 2 bracket updates, but we didn't get a chance to go over the second 2. So, yeah, might as well. All right, so Night Tempo finished 3-2 over Snail. Snail was actually in the Winter Championship, a representative from Latin America, and wasn't able to push through last season. Also, not looking great for him this season, seeing as he's already in the lower bracket. Latin America just hasn't had the strongest performance in the Americas region.
Well, a lot of that, I think, in this particular matchup is Snail in particular. I've seen a lot of his play at this point. He's been through a couple of these preliminaries, but his play hasn't been quite as tight as some of the other players that are out there. It's just not really up to par. He's been able to put up some good performances despite that, but again, these tournaments are about consistency and being able to prepare adequately and make the right decisions when the time comes to it. And Snail dropping here in round 2 to Night Tempo, who's a player that I'm very unfamiliar with, it's not like a surprise, but it's not like I would have guessed this either. But Snail, if he's going to make it through at this point, he's really got to tighten up his play and buckle down and make sure that he's making great decisions.
Yeah, definitely a little bit surprising, seeing as we don't know who Night Tempo is, but also at the same time, not super surprising, seeing as Snail doesn't have a perfect track record of play. But going on to the 4th match, Astrogation finished 3-2 over Vangswisher. Vangswisher actually TJ's pick in the predictions, and now he's already dropped to the lower bracket. Not looking good for TJ.
Well, he does have Frozen as one of his choices as well.
That's pretty good.
And I want to touch a little bit on Astrogation because Astrogation has been such a grinder this season when it comes to Hearthstone. I follow him a lot on Twitter and always read his updates. He is constantly top 8 of these Open Cups, and he struggles to break the top 8 points. So often he walks away after a long day of play with 0 points for his efforts. But sometimes he comes away with some great finishes as well. I mean, he's been able to be top 16 in points due to those up-and-cut performances, and this is a really big one for him. If he top 8s this event, not only does that give him a shot at getting to BlizzCon without points, but it also helps him alongside that last chance qualifier. He needs a very strong finish to the end of this season if he wants to find himself there.
He's a great player that not many people have heard of, and it would be awesome for him to finally get, you know, a really high-profile finish. But we're ready to go back into our next match, and hopefully we'll be able to finish this one as well. So I'm going to throw it over to TJ and Frodan at the desk.